Hey everyone, it's Jonathan from Motorcycology. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. So I'm here in a city called Brașov, Romania, and I've been here on a business trip, but I thought it'd be a great place to do an introduction to one of my videos. Most likely this is going to be a video on one of the steering components of the C3 Corvette that I'm working on. So a special warm welcome and thanks to the hosts here in Brașov, greatly appreciated, and let's dive into this video and see how it goes. Well, here we have a whole bunch of steering components, and in the previous video you saw me build these things, and in other videos you've seen me refurbish this relay rod here, is I guess what they call it, or steering rod, but it connects things like the tie rod ends and idler arm and things like that. So this is good to go. And a while ago I put in new seals on the power steering cylinder, so this thing's good to go, and we'll be installing that as well back in the car. A few other things to show is here's the new idler arm here. I wasn't initially going to replace it, but I thought might as well. It's got a new ball joint on the end, which will be valuable, I think. So basically that's what it looks like. It attaches to the frame in a certain area, and then this guy here will connect onto the relay rod. Looks pretty good. And I'm just going to tape that to here so I don't lose those ones. All right, so those are in there. I'm going to stick them back in the bag for now. So we'll stick that over there. As far as reference, as indicated in previous videos, I'm going to be using some of the direction that is in this book here, which is useful when it comes to setting up your idler arm, which is here, and just getting all this stuff hooked up properly. Pretty straightforward, just a lot of things to do. Pretty decent diagrams here. And on this book here, no real directions, but pretty decent pictures to follow. For example, I've shown this before. That's the basic setup, and I'll be referring to that throughout. I think it's easier to do with your access to the frame, but we'll get it done. It's been a long time, so definitely waiting and happy to get these things done. This part here is the relatively expensive part. It's the steering control valve, and let's just have a look at it. And I got it from Eckler's. This is it, and it also has a kind of a ball joint on it, which is pretty good, and it's got a threaded end here. Right here. I need the bolt for this thing. That is going to be interesting to try and find that. I still think I have my old one around, so I should be able to locate it. So this thing here, just to show you, just hold on a sec. So this tape has been on here for a while. And these two, oh, this thing screws in here anyway, like so. So that becomes part of this giant rod here, eventually. Now I'm on the hunt for my old one of these things. I also have numerous other parts. So this is a power steering valve, which will go to that steering control valve, and it also returns to the power steering pump. And there's a whole bunch of these: power steering hose, pressure, small block. All the parts are fitted. And we have these interesting shaped tubes. It's a power steering hose to the cylinder. And we've got another one here, which is same type of deal. They're definitely needed to set up this guy here. I also have all these parts as well, which has the attachment hardware, the original, and some of the brackets that I refurbished and refreshed as well. This is the main mounting bracket, and we've got this guy in here that has the pulley back on it. So that's good. Ready to go. And I'm going to keep this in the box for now. So before I start installing it on the car, I'm going to put the steering control valve on here. So you can see here how this has a little cutout in it, and that's to allow the screw to go through there, and I'll show you that in a second. So bringing this guy out once again, I thought it would be easier to put this on the bench than to put it on when the relay rod is installed. So we're going to put this on first, and this is the bolt here that I was talking about. And this little cutout here just allows space for that to go through. And I think it's a good thing because it makes sure that the steering control valve is aligned perfectly with the right angles of this relay rod here. So last time this thing goes in that box. This isn't necessarily required, but I'm going to put a little bit of this 3-in-1 oil around here, and that is going to prevent hopefully any rust or corrosion in the future. So let's do that. Just going to let that run around. Take this guy here. There we go. Now let's put this guy on. A little tricky to get started, not because it's difficult, but because it weighs quite a lot. got this great big long solid metal bar, and now there's this weight on the side. So wow, enough turning here. Now I got to see where this lines up with that cutout. Almost there. Can almost see through that. So the screw should go through there. Let's see. Oops, comes through this way. Wiggle that a little bit. There you can see in there, we've got that screw or the bolt through there. You can see in there. It's just a matter of tightening it up, pretty straightforward. And I'm not going to pinch this thing up too tight on this, just enough. Certainly looks a lot better than it did before, the old one. So can't wait to get it on the vehicle and start putting it to good use. So we've got a bunch of stuff that needs to go on, and that includes finally the power steering cylinder, and this is going to be mounted to the frame. Couple holes for the lines for the power steering, and we've got the steering rod here which is going to go on, and we've got the steering control valve, and I'm going to try and highlight this a little bit more so as I put it together on what all these parts are, so that it's clear to people, and then also how to run the lines, which are a series of lines like this, and I'll be putting those on once I get the steering rod connected to the tie rod ends. And got a few other ones here too, so these things here will go to the steering pump, and I'm going to attach them, I think, to the steering pump first before I put them in, and that way these will be easy to connect onto these particular areas here. So that all looks pretty good, and we've got the tie rods here, or the old and the new going in, and I made a minor adjustment on this one. Just wanted to make sure that I was getting the threads in the right direction, so I redid this particular one, which is the right tie rod end. So I'm going to go and put those on the Corvette right now, and we'll start putting this all back together. I'll be following a couple diagrams here just for visuals. This one's really useful. It clearly shows the entire setup there, which is really good. And then I also have this one as well, which shows where the idler arm comes down, and you've got your right tie rod, and there's the steering cylinder there, and that could be the tie rod, and that's the steering. So coming in and looking at the Corvette here, here's the first steering knuckle, which I'm going to put the tie rod on, and then I'm just going to move my way left and install that. So right side tie rod in, and then I'm going to do the left side right after that. All right, the first part, I want to stick this one right in here, and it's really pretty simple. And I'm just going to hand tie that for now. So this one is in, and I'm going to get the steering rod in a sec, and then also attach the idler arm as well. So this is the old idler arm, which I'm not going to use, but I need those bolts. So not going to use this idler arm. Seems okay, but I might as well put in the new one. This is the new one here. And the part is, if you guys are interested in it, just a regular idle arm for a 63 to 82 Corvette. And this is what the new one looks like. Exactly the same. Got a nice boot there, and got this thing on the go as well. So I'm going to see what's in here. And we've got some grease nipples and a cotter pin, which is great. So the grease nipple goes in here and on that side here. So let's install this sucker. So we're in the wheel well, and then moving up the frame here, you can see the two holes, one here and one there, where the idler arm goes. So the long bolt obviously is going to go through this hole because it's got to go the length of the frame, and the shorter bolt goes on top where there's just a little bracket that it goes through. So I'm going to attach that right now. So looking back into the wheel well, this one is like a carriage bolt, so it's got the little square part here, and that fits directly in here. So it's just a matter of lining this guy up. There we go. That one's in like that, and then the other one goes on the bracket above, which hard to see, but it's straight through there. It's going to be a little bit more challenging, but works on the same principle. Sometimes people may wonder which part of this idle arm goes against the frame. So it's hard to determine, especially when you have the steering rod out. But one good indicator is you take the old one here, and you can clearly see on this side that this is where the outside bolts went, and then because of the corrosion and stuff like that, that would have been the side that would have been sitting against the frame. So that way it's easy to figure out that when you install it on the frame, it kind of goes against the frame like that, and this one will be facing down like that. So moving on to this one, we now know that this side here goes against the frame, not that side. You almost want to believe it's that side just because of the shape, but it's actually that side. All right, I'm looking down through the hood, through the right side, and this is the bracket that I was talking about here that the other bolt has to go through. So I'm just going to stick that through right now, like that. That's perfect. So now you can see, hopefully, where the two bolts there. So you can see now where the two bolts are that are going to hold the idler arm on. So we're back underneath. I'm going to line up the idler arm with these two bolts here and get that installed. Make sure I have it on the right side. It's so counterintuitive. Part of it on. Just going to put the bolt on here lightly. Get the other one in. All right, here we have the idler arm finally on. Sometimes it's interesting, what looks simple takes longer. So just putting in these two bolts here took like 15 minutes. Anyway, that's good. Now I can start moving on with more of the steering gear here. All right, now we're going to put on the tie rod on this side. So that's just going to pop underneath like that. Stick the castle nut on. Keep that in place. So what we've got here is the tie rod end on the steering knuckle, and it's going to run along here, and it's going to fit onto the steering rod, and the steering box here is also going to fit onto the steering control valve as well. So we're going to move on for doing that. So right now, if you look way down there, you can see that the other tie rod is kind of sitting in place, ready to go. So the first part here is getting the idler arm and the right tie rod, this side, connected to the relay rod. So I'm going to do that now, and I think I'm going to have to crawl underneath the Corvette to do that. All right, going to line this up here, which is roughly like this. This guy can turn a little bit. Take this screw off. There we go, the bolt's off. This guy can simply go in here, like so. Stick the nut back on. This is a castle nut, as we know. Working up here on the idler arm. Now the idler arm goes into this part here. It should be pretty straightforward. There we go. Stick the castle nut on for now. Nice. So here's your connection right now. You've got the right tie rod end is coming along here. It's going to this part of the relay rod right there. And this part is what has your idler arm in it. So that's in for now. Now let's move over to the left side, which is over there, and let's stick the other tie rod in. Here's looking at the left side. So way back here is a tie rod. That's going to come around and go through here and get that lined up. So I'm going to scoot over to the other side to do that, although I could perhaps do it from here. Yeah, I can just do it from here, not a problem. So let's take off the castle nut here. Flip these around a little bit if I can. There we go. Put that into position and then get this guy into position. There we go. Stick the nut on. Hand tighten for now. Keeps everything in place. So what we have here, you can see, is the power steering control valve is there. You've got the tie rod all the way down here. It connects to the relay rod. And then as we move over here, you've got the other tie rod connected here, and way under here is your idler arm. So right now we've got it pretty much set up. Next step is going to be putting in the steering cylinder, and we'll get around to that. So this is where the steering cylinder attaches. So when I took this off originally, I left all the bolts and nuts in place. So I just have to take this tape off and I'll be able to reinstall that. So this is where I want to put the steering cylinder up here. So looking under here, I'm going to stick the cylinder part in first, which goes here, and then I'm going to bolt it in over there. Let's do that. This guy can come up here, go in there, and I'll put the castle nut on. It's excellent. And then this can flip around, come out a little bit, and can go in these spots here. So there we go. That is technically in and tightened to the frame. So here we have the new tie rod in, which is great. There's another look. You can see all the new parts here, which are everywhere from the steering knuckle. You've got your tie rod all the way in. You've got your idler arm installed, and now you're onto the relay rod with the idler arm, tie rod, and then you've got your steering cylinder over there, and then way down at the end, the steering control valve and the actual steering gear box there, and the tie rod way at the end. So it's looking pretty good. Happy with that. So once again, I'm referring to this old Haynes manual for the Corvette, and just to give you the torque values here, it's probably one of the most useful parts about this book is the torque values. I'll put them in the description of this video. So all the torque values are in foot-pounds, and the good thing about it is it has things like the Pitman arm to relay rod, which is something that I had to do. We have the tie rod end ball stud nuts, which are 36. We've got the tie rod clamp bolts, which are 18. I've already put those on. Down here we've got the power cylinder to relay rod ball stud nut, which is at 45. Power cylinder to bracket nut, 23. Power cylinder bracket to frame nuts, already done at 17. And a whole bunch of other things in there. So I'll put that in the description so that it helps you guys out if you ever have to do that. So I'm out here right now just finishing up the job. All I have to do is torque the castle nuts on the ball studs and ball joints and all the connectors, and I'm done. So I've given you the torque values. Now I'm going to go underneath this car and finish the job. So looking from the lower left, you've got your tie rod end on your steering knuckle. You've got your idler arm. And then way back there, you've got the other tie rod end that is connected to the relay rod. So for the tie rod ends, for all sides, they're torqued at 36 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one here. And then way down here is the other one, which is done at 36 as well. There we go. That one's torqued in. Now I'm going to get underneath and do the other side. So from the idler arm to the relay rod for this ball stud here, it's only 35 foot-pounds. So I'm going to do that now. There we go. All right, this one is torqued in. So I've got the idler arm done. I've got the outside tie rod, and I've got the inside tie rod. So way back here, we've got the power steering cylinder connected to the relay rod. So this stud here, or this nut here, needs to be torqued to 45 foot-pounds. So we're looking up at the power steering cylinder here, and this is the ball stud that goes through the relay rod. So this is tightened to 45 foot-pounds. So over here we've got the inner tie rod on the left side that needs to be torqued up to the relay rod. That's the last of the ball studs that go in the relay rod. And then we have the outside left tie rod that goes into the steering knuckle. That has to be torqued down. And then finally, way up here, probably can't see it too well. Over here you've got the ball stud for the power steering control valve that goes into the Pitman arm, which is part of the steering, and I'm going to do that as well. So let's get these ones torqued up. So this is the tie rod that goes to the relay rod. This is torqued in at 36, so I'm going to do that now. So we've got the power steering cylinder shaft, which goes through this bracket here, and it's got a stud on the end, so we've got to torque that one in as well. So this one here is torqued to 23 foot-pounds, so I'm going to do that. All right, we're getting this tie rod end torqued down here. So the last thing that I need to do is to put on the castle nut that goes on top of the steering control valve and the Pitman arm. All right, just putting the castle nut on now. This nut goes on at 45, and right now I don't know if I can actually reach it with this setup. Great. So we're tightening this one up. All right, there's the castle nut on the Pitman arm. We're good with that. So overall, it is looking pretty good under here. And you can see what an interesting steering setup all this is. But it's not as complicated as you think. Once this is finalized and I have the engine running and the pump going, there's a screw in here that you can use to adjust your steering to make it true. Anyway, that's it for now. And we are definitely getting there with this project. Hey everyone, that concludes this part of the video, which I guess is part 2 of the process. So in the next video, I'll be putting the steering pump in and connecting the hoses, and then connecting all the lines that go to the power steering control valve and into the power steering cylinder as well. So stick around for that one. It'll be out in a week or so. So thanks so much for your support. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so. It is really appreciated and helps out a lot. And share the video to those people that may be interested in looking at vintage cars and how to repair them, or maybe even have one of your own or interested in getting one. It's all useful information out there on YouTube to help us get these things safely on the road again and continual maintenance. So stick around for the video coming up, which will conclude the steering components of the Corvette, and we'll catch you all back here next time.